When I was 13 years old, I was being prepared for the exact political project that now runs this country. I didn't know it at the time. To me, it felt like patriotism, like defending my community, like standing up for the values I thought America was built on. But looking back, I can see it clearly that I was being groomed into the very authoritarianism that today calls itself freedom. The Tea Party was the training ground. It taught me how to dress fear up as patriotism, how to mistake conformity for unity, how to equate cruelty with strength. It told me that liberty was about closing borders, about putting soldiers on the line to keep out invaders, about deporting families who didn't look like mine. Every slogan, every rallying cry was designed to harden me to other people's humanity and make me believe that obedience to authority was the same thing as freedom. What Trump is carrying out now in his second term is the exact program we were being conditioned to accept during Obama's first. But the truth that broke me out is that none of it ever had anything to do with liberty. The right doesn't care about liberty. It cares about control. It cares about conformity. It cares about obedience. And the mask only slips once you're too far in to turn back. That's the trap. Step by step, inch by inch, they lead you deeper until defending their agenda feels like defending yourself. I skipped those steps. I dove headfirst into the extremism. I believed the rhetoric about militarized borders and mass deportations. I believed the slogans about taking our country back. And then, almost as quickly, I lost my faith. I read the Bible cover to cover and walked away from religion. And when I did, the glue that held the whole narrative together dissolved. Suddenly, everything they taught me sounded hollow. The Enlightenment values I'd obsessed over as a kid, the ideas of liberty, reason, and individual dignity came rushing back to the surface. That was when I saw the con for what it was. The right claims to defend the Enlightenment, but only in words. In practice, it wages war against it, because Enlightenment freedom is about sovereignty of the individual. It is about dismantling arbitrary hierarchies, exposing superstition, and recognizing the equal dignity of every person. The right doesn't want that. It wants obedience to tradition, obedience to leaders, obedience to a system where you are free only as long as you never step outside the lines. That's why they can pretend to be defenders of liberty while cheering on censorship, mass deportations, book bans, and surveillance. That's why they can claim to honor the Constitution while building a government of loyalty tests, forced conformity, and punishment for dissent. They don't see liberty as a universal right. They see it as a privilege for those who serve power. Enlightenment socialism inverts that. It begins from the principle that liberty is not permission. It is ownership. Ownership of your own life, your own labor, your own future. It rejects the idea that freedom can exist alongside masters, whether they wear crowns, uniforms, or corporate titles. A master is a master no matter what mask they wear. And a system that requires masters is a system that will always collapse back into tyranny. The Tea Party tried to teach me that freedom meant building walls, but what I learned on my own is that true freedom comes from tearing down the walls that separate human beings into rulers and ruled. I was told that liberty meant obedience to God, to tradition, to authority. What I learned was that liberty means breaking those chains and building a society where no person's survival is contingent on their submission to another's power. This is why I talk about the Endarkenment, because what we are living through now is the exact inversion of the Enlightenment. Where the Enlightenment lifted reason over superstition, the Endarkenment glorifies blind faith. Where the Enlightenment insisted on individual dignity, the Endarkenment demands conformity to tribe. Where the Enlightenment set liberty as the standard, the Endarkenment makes obedience the price of safety. And I can say that with certainty because I was radicalized by it. I know its language. I know its seductions. I know how it worms its way into people's sense of identity until they can't tell the difference between themselves and the ideology controlling them. That's why they cling to it so desperately, even as it corrodes their lives. It feels like home. But I am living proof you can break out. I was groomed for this project, just like millions of Americans are being groomed right now, and I escaped, not by trading one blind faith for another, but by returning to the foundation of reason, dignity, and liberty that the Enlightenment first set down. That's the only way out, because the opposite of endarkenment isn't chaos, it's light. And that's what Enlightenment socialism offers. The continuation of the American experiment, the completion of its unfinished promise. A system where liberty is not provisional, not temporary, not contingent on obedience, but durable enough to last for centuries, resilient enough to withstand crisis, and universal enough to apply to every human being. The right sold me a counterfeit version of America, and I believed it until I saw the cracks. Now I see the truth, that the real betrayal of America is not resisting their tyranny. The real betrayal is conforming to it. And the only way to honor the promise of this country is to fight for a freedom that cannot be taken away, a freedom that belongs to all of us, not just the powerful. That's why I stand here today, not because I was never fooled, but because I was, and I got out. And if I can, so can this country.